This is your fault." Derek's words cut through the silence of our living room like a knife. He stood by the window, his back to me, shoulders rigid with anger. "If you hadn't insisted I turn down that consulting contract, I wouldn't be in this position." I sat on the couch, my laptop open to the email I'd received 30 seconds after he'd slammed the front door on his way to the office that morning. The email he didn't know existed. The one that changed everything. "Derek, we discussed this," I replied calmly. "That contract required you to relocate to Singapore for 18 months. We have the kids. My practice is here. We agreed it wasn't feasible." "You decided it wasn't feasible," he corrected, his voice dripping with bitterness. "I could have built something incredible. Instead, I'm stuck at Crawford Industries watching them promote younger, less qualified candidates over me." What Derek didn't know was that I had turned down nothing. What he really didn't know was that I discovered his plan 3 months ago. My name is Claire Montgomery. I'm 42 years old, a pediatric surgeon at Boston General Hospital. Derek and I had been married for 17 years. We had 2 children, Owen, 14, and Sophia, 11. For most of those years, I believed we were partners, building a life together. 3 months ago, I discovered the truth. It started with a phone call Derek thought I couldn't hear. He'd been in his home office, door closed, voice raised. "I was passing by with laundry when I caught fragments. She'll never agree to it. Just tell them I'm interested. We'll figure out the family situation later." The family situation. That phrase lodged in my chest like a shard of glass. I'd stood outside his office door listening. "The Singapore contract is perfect. 18 months is long enough to establish myself, then I can leverage it for something better. Somewhere without complications." Complications. Our children. Our life. Me. I didn't confront him. Instead, I began paying attention. Over the following weeks, I noticed patterns I'd previously dismissed. Late nights at the office that his calendar didn't reflect. Phone calls he took in another room. A new wardrobe. Expensive suits purchased without discussion. Then I found the emails. Derek had always been careless about logging out of shared devices. One evening, while he showered, I checked the tablet we both used. His email was open. The thread with Austin Pharmaceuticals' recruitment team was extensive. They were offering him a position as Chief Operations Officer at their Singapore headquarters. The salary was substantial, but the emails revealed something more troubling. Regarding family relocation, one message read, "We understand this can be complex. Many of our executives find it easier to establish themselves first, then bring families later. Some find the distance actually beneficial for focusing on career development." Derek had responded, "That aligns with my thinking. My wife's career makes immediate relocation difficult. An initial solo period would work well." Solo. He was planning to leave us. I'd photographed every email, every message, every document. Then I'd forwarded them to my personal account and deleted the sent messages from his trash folder. Derek never knew I'd seen anything. The Singapore contract he mentioned to me 2 weeks later was presented as a surprise opportunity. "Claire, something amazing came up," he'd said over dinner. "Austin Pharmaceuticals wants me in Singapore, 18 months, huge salary increase. This could change everything for us." I'd played my role perfectly. Concerned wife, considering the logistics. "What about the kids? My practice? 18 months is a long time." "We'd figure it out," he'd said, his enthusiasm carefully calibrated. "Maybe you could visit, or the kids could spend summers there." Not once did he suggest we all go together. Not once did he acknowledge what I'd seen in his emails. He wanted to go alone. I told him I needed time to think. The next day, I'd called Austin Pharmaceuticals directly. The recruitment director, Patricia Wu, had been surprised by my call. "Mrs. Montgomery? I wasn't expecting to hear from you." "I wanted to discuss my husband's potential relocation," I'd said smoothly. "As a surgeon with nearly 20 years of experience, I'm curious about medical opportunities in Singapore. If Derek accepts, I'd want to continue practicing." There was a pause. "Of course, though I should mention Mr. Montgomery indicated family relocation might be gradual." "Did he?" I'd kept my voice neutral. "That's interesting. Could you forward me the complete compensation package? I'd like to review everything before we make a family decision." Patricia had agreed. The package arrived within hours. It confirmed everything. Derek's salary would be generous. but the family relocation assistance was minimal. The housing allowance was for a one-bedroom apartment. The spousal employment support was non-existent. This position was designed for someone going alone. That's when I'd started planning. I'd contacted 3 colleagues who'd relocated to Singapore for medical positions. All confirmed what I'd suspected. The city had a thriving healthcare sector, desperate for experienced specialists. Within 2 weeks, I had 3 interview requests from Singapore hospitals. One was particularly interesting. Children's Medical Center Singapore, one of Asia's premier pediatric facilities. They'd been recruiting internationally for a new cardiac surgery unit. My background was perfect. The interviews were conducted via video conference. I didn't tell Derek. While he plotted his solo adventure, I was securing my own future. The offer came 6 weeks ago. Chief of Pediatric Cardiac Surgery. Salary nearly double what I made in Boston. Full family relocation package, 4-bedroom apartment, international school tuition for both children, spousal employment assistance. They wanted me to start in 3 months. I'd negotiated for 4, giving me time to arrange everything properly. Then I'd waited for Derek to show his hand. He'd presented the Singapore opportunity again last month, this time with more urgency. "Claire, Austin needs an answer. This is a limited-time offer." "Then turn it down," I'd said calmly. His face had darkened. "You're not even considering it." "I am considering it. I'm considering that you want to go alone. I'm considering that you've been planning this for months without genuine discussion with me. I'm considering what that means about our marriage." "That's not fair," he'd protested. "I've been trying to discuss this with you for weeks." "No, Derek, you've been trying to convince me to let you go. There's a difference." He'd stormed out. That was 3 weeks ago. Since then, he'd been bitter, blaming me at every opportunity. His career was stalling. Younger colleagues were advancing. All my fault for holding him back. This morning's argument had been the culmination. "You're selfish," he'd shouted. "You care more about your job than my future, than our family's future." Then he'd left for work, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the windows. 30 seconds later, my laptop chimed. Email from Patricia Wu at Austin Pharmaceuticals. "Dear Dr. Montgomery," it began. "I hope this message finds you well. I'm writing regarding a sensitive matter concerning your husband's application for the Chief Operations Officer position in Singapore. After extensive consideration, we've decided to extend the offer to another candidate. Mr. Montgomery's qualifications were impressive, but during the final evaluation, concerns arose about his commitment to the role. Specifically, his initial insistence on solo relocation, then sudden pivot to demanding family support after we'd already structured the package, raised questions about his long-term planning and decision-making. Additionally, we became aware that he'd been simultaneously interviewing with our competitors while negotiating with us, which violated the exclusivity agreement he'd signed. We wanted to inform you directly, as you'd reached out regarding medical opportunities. We hope this doesn't affect your own career considerations. Best regards, Patricia Wu." I read the email 3 times, a smile spreading across my face. Derek had been rejected. The opportunity he'd spent months planning, the escape he'd orchestrated from our family, gone. And he'd destroyed it himself, with his greed and dishonesty. My phone was still in my hand when it buzzed. Text from Derek. "Need to talk tonight. Something important happened." I could imagine him at his desk, processing the rejection, calculating how to spin this. He'd probably blame me somehow. Claim the uncertainty I'd created made him seem uncommitted. But he had no idea what I'd been planning. No idea that while he'd been scheming to leave us, I'd been building something better. I typed a response. "I have something important to discuss too. Dinner at 7. Then I opened another email, this one sent 2 days ago. The subject line read, "Contract Finalization, Children's Medical Center Singapore." Everything was ready. The employment contract, the relocation package, the children's school enrollment. I'd kept it all secret, waiting for the right moment. That evening, Derek arrived home with flowers and wine, guilt gifts. Classic Derek behavior after one of his outbursts. "Claire, I'm sorry about this morning," he started. "I was frustrated, but I shouldn't have blamed you." "Sit down, Derek. We need to talk." He sat, setting the flowers on the coffee table. I could see the calculation in his eyes, the careful presentation of remorse. "I got some news today," he began. About Singapore, I know. I interrupted. Austin Pharmaceuticals sent me an email. His face went pale. They what? Patricia Wu contacted me directly. She wanted to inform me that you'd been rejected for the position. Derek's mouth opened, then closed. Finally, they had no right to contact you. Actually, they did. I'd reached out to them months ago about medical opportunities in Singapore. We'd been in communication. You what? His voice rose. When did you? Why would you? When did I start planning? About 2 weeks after I found your emails plotting to abandon our family for 18 months. The silence that followed was deafening. Derek stared at me, his face cycling through emotions: shock, anger, fear, calculation. I wasn't abandoning anyone, he finally said. That's not fair. Isn't it? Your emails were quite clear, Derek. Distance actually beneficial for focusing on career development. Solo relocation, 1-bedroom apartment, no family support. You went through my emails? You left them open on our shared tablet. I protected our family by gathering information. But let's not get distracted. The Singapore opportunity is off the table for you now. Because of you, he accused. Because you interfered, contacting them behind my back. No, Derek. Because you violated an exclusivity agreement by interviewing with their competitors. Because you changed your requirements mid-negotiation, demanding family support, after initially insisting on going alone. Patricia was quite clear about why you were rejected. Derek's hands clenched into fists. So you're happy? I've lost this opportunity, and you get to be satisfied that I'm stuck here? I'm not happy you lost an opportunity. I'm relieved you won't be abandoning our children for your career. I wasn't going to abandon them. Then what would you call leaving them for 18 months while you established yourself in Singapore? I kept my voice level, clinical. What would you call planning all of this without genuine discussion with your family? Derek stood pacing. You don't understand the pressure I'm under. Crawford Industries is a dead end. I needed something bigger. So you were willing to sacrifice our family for your ambition. It wasn't like that. He ran his hands through his hair. I thought if I could just have this time to build something, to prove myself, then everything would be better, for all of us. Better how? With you thousands of miles away? With Owen and Sophia growing up without their father? I would have visited. They could have come for holidays. You were planning to leave, Derek. Own it. You wanted out, and you were using career advancement as justification. He turned on me, anger replacing defensiveness. Fine, yes. I wanted the opportunity. I wanted something for myself for once instead of always compromising for everyone else's needs. Everyone else's needs, I repeated slowly. You mean your children? Your wife? I mean the life I've been living for 17 years. The career I've put on hold because of family obligations. Obligations? That's what you call our children? You know what I mean. Derek's voice was sharp now. You have your career, your practice, your success. I've been the one making compromises, taking the stable corporate job instead of the exciting opportunities because we needed consistency for the kids. We both made compromises, Derek. That's what partnership means. Except your compromises never stopped you from becoming chief of pediatric surgery. My compromises made me a middle manager watching younger people get promoted over me. The bitterness in his voice was raw, toxic. This wasn't new resentment. This had been building for years. So you blame me, I said quietly, for your career choices, for your position, for everything. I blame us. This life we built, the choices we made together that somehow only held me back. I stood, walked to my laptop, and turned it to face him. The email from Children's Medical Center Singapore was open on the screen. Read this. Derek leaned forward, confusion replacing anger. As his eyes scanned the document, I watched recognition dawn. Then shock. Then something close to panic. You got a job offer in Singapore? Chief of Pediatric Cardiac Surgery. Double my Boston salary. Full family relocation package. International school tuition for Owen and Sophia. 4-bedroom apartment in a family-friendly neighborhood. I let that sink in. I've been negotiating this for 2 months. You're leaving? We're leaving. All of us. I accepted the position last week. We move in 6 weeks. Derek's face had gone white. You accepted without discussing it with me? The same way you planned to accept Austin's offer without genuine discussion with me. That's different. How? How is it different, Derek? I leaned forward. You were planning to leave us for 18 months. I'm asking you to relocate with us as a family. My job is here, Derek stammered. My career. Your career at Crawford Industries, where you feel stuck and unappreciated, where younger colleagues get promoted over at you. I can't just quit. We need the income. I'll be making double my current salary. That's more than enough to support our family while you look for opportunities in Singapore. Or, I paused, watching him carefully, you could stay here. If Boston is more important than being with your family. The trap closed around him visibly. Everything he'd said about wanting the Singapore opportunity, about needing something bigger, I was offering it to him. But on my terms, with the family intact. This is insane, he said finally. You can't just uproot our entire lives without discussion. I had discussions with Owen and Sophia. His head snapped up. You told the kids without telling me? I told them 2 weeks ago. After you blamed me for ruining your Singapore opportunity, after months of your bitterness and resentment. What did you tell them? The truth, that I'd been offered an incredible opportunity in Singapore, that it would mean adventure, new experiences, and keeping our family together. And they just agreed? Derek's voice was hollow. Owen was excited immediately. New school, new city, new experiences. Sophia took some convincing, but when I explained that the alternative might be Dad leaving for a year and a half, she understood. Derek collapsed back into his chair. You manipulated them. I gave them information and let them make an informed choice, unlike what you were planning. I wasn't planning anything definite. Derek, stop. I have the emails, the timeline, the apartment listings you saved, the calculation of how much you'd save by not paying family relocation costs. I pulled out my phone, scrolling to the screenshots I'd saved. Here's your search history. Fastest divorce in Massachusetts. Dividing assets after 15+ years marriage. Child custody for parent working overseas. You weren't planning to leave temporarily, you were planning your exit strategy. The color drained from his face completely. I was just researching options. You were planning to abandon us and paint it as a career necessity. That's not, I never intended. Derek's voice broke. I was confused, frustrated. I made mistakes. You made choices, calculated, deliberate choices, and now I'm making mine. I closed my laptop. You have 2 options. Come with us to Singapore as a family or stay here alone. Either way, Owen, Sophia, and I are leaving in 6 weeks. You can't take my children to another country. I can, and I will. I have primary custody according to our informal arrangement. I've always been their primary caregiver. My attorney has confirmed that my relocation for career advancement is legally protected, especially given your own attempts to do the same. You got an attorney? 3 months ago. When I found your emails, I've been preparing for this conversation since then. Derek stared at me like I was a stranger. Who are you? This isn't the Claire I married. No, it isn't. The Claire you married would have accepted your lies, would have let you leave, would have stayed in Boston raising our children alone while you established yourself overseas. I stood. I grew up, Derek. I stopped waiting for you to value our family and started protecting it myself. I need time to think. Derek said finally. You have 1 week. Children's Medical Center needs confirmation of our family status for the relocation package. If you're coming, they'll arrange employment assistance. If not, I'll proceed as a single parent. A week? That's impossible. I need to consider my career, my options. You've had months to consider your career and options while plotting your escape. I'm giving you 7 days to decide if you want to be part of this family. I walked toward the kitchen, then paused. By the way, Crawford Industries called me this afternoon. Derek's head jerked up. What? Your boss, Cameron Fletcher. Apparently, you've been telling people at work that I'm preventing you from accepting career opportunities, that my unreasonable demands are holding you back professionally. I never said unreasonable. Cameron wanted to know if there were marital issues affecting your performance. I told him the truth. I smiled. That you'd been offered a position in Singapore, planning to go alone, and that I'd independently secured a better opportunity for our whole family. He was quite interested in that information. Derek's face flushed red. You had no right to discuss our personal business with my employer. You had no right to use me as an excuse for your professional shortcomings. Cameron asked a direct question. and I answered honestly. What else did you tell him? That you'd violated an exclusivity agreement with Austin Pharmaceuticals by interviewing with their competitors, that you'd been rejected for the position, that I'd offered you the opportunity to relocate with our family, but you were considering your options. I paused. He said he'd be very interested in discussing your future at Crawford Industries when you return to work tomorrow. Derek's hands were shaking now. You destroyed my career. No, Derek, you did that yourself with your dishonesty and poor decisions. I simply stopped covering for you. The next morning, Derek left for work without speaking to me. I dropped the kids at school and headed to the hospital for my shift. My phone rang at 10 a.m. It was my attorney, Samantha Pierce. Claire, I just received a call from Derek's attorney, Samantha said. He's retained representation? Benjamin Walsh, he's claiming you're attempting to kidnap the children by relocating internationally without his consent. I'd expected this. And your response? That you have documented evidence of his plan to relocate alone for 18 months, effectively abandoning the children. That your relocation is for legitimate career advancement with full family support. That you've offered him the opportunity to relocate with you. What's Walsh arguing? That Singapore is too far for shared custody if you separate. That you're using the relocation to gain leverage in a potential divorce. Am I? Samantha was quiet for a moment. Are you planning to divorce him? I don't know yet. But I'm planning to protect my children and my career. If Derek chooses not to come with us, that's his decision. Walsh is threatening to file for an emergency custody order to prevent you from leaving the country with the kids. On what grounds? That the relocation is not in the children's best interest. Let him try, I said calmly. I have Owen and Sophia's written statements about wanting to go. I have Derek's emails planning his own solo relocation. I have evidence of his financial deception and his attempts to blame me for his career failures. If he wants a custody fight, I'm prepared. Samantha sighed. Claire, are you sure about this? A custody battle, especially international, could get very ugly. Derek made his choice when he started planning to abandon us. I'm making mine to protect our family. If he wants to be part of that family, he can come with us. If not, he can explain to a judge why my career advancement should be blocked when his wouldn't have been. All right, I'll respond to Walsh accordingly. But Claire, consider what this will do to your marriage. My marriage ended when I found those emails. We're just deciding what happens next. That evening, Derek came home late. The kids were already in bed. He sat at the kitchen table, his tie loosened, his face exhausted. Cameron fired me today, he said quietly. I felt a flicker of surprise but no sympathy. Why? Violation of company ethics policy. The exclusivity agreement I signed with Austin was while I was still employed at Crawford. It violated my non-compete clause. I see. You see? That's all you have to say? Derek's voice rose. I just lost my job because of this mess you created. I created Derek, you violated your employment agreement. You interviewed with competitors while under contract. Those are your choices, not mine. If you hadn't contacted Austin, they never would have mentioned it to Cameron. If you hadn't lied and schemed, there would have been nothing to mention. Derek slumped in his chair. I have nothing now. No job, no prospects, no options. You have options. You could come to Singapore with your family. Children's Medical Center has employment services for spouses. You could find something there, rebuild your career in a new market. As your dependent spouse, living off your salary while I look for work? The bitterness was back. Is your ego more important than your family? He didn't answer. The silence stretched between us. Finally, I stood. I'm going to bed. You have 6 days left to decide. The next 4 days were tense. Derek stayed in the guest room. We spoke only when necessary, usually about the kids. I continued preparations for the move, organizing documents, selling items we wouldn't take, preparing Owen and Sophia for their new school. On the 5th day, Derek's attorney filed the emergency custody petition. Samantha called immediately. The hearing is tomorrow. They're asking for a temporary order preventing you from leaving the country with the children pending a full custody evaluation. What are our chances? Good. We have strong evidence. But Claire, this is going to be public. Are you prepared for that? Yes. The hearing was brief. Walsh argued that my relocation was retaliatory, designed to punish Derek for his career ambitions and separate him from his children. Samantha presented the emails, the timeline, the evidence of Derek's plan to leave us. She called Owen to testify. I'd tried to prevent it, but he'd insisted. My 14-year-old son sat calmly in the witness chair and explained to the judge that he wanted to go to Singapore, that he was excited for the opportunity, that he'd prefer his father to come with them, but understood if he chose not to. My mom has always been there for us, Owen said. She's the one who comes to my games, helps with homework, takes care of us when we're sick. Dad works a lot. This is a great opportunity for her, and she wants us all to go together. I don't understand why Dad would want to stay here alone. The judge, a stern woman in her 60s, listened carefully. When Walsh tried to cross-examine Owen, she cut him off. That's enough. I won't have counsel badgering a minor about his parents' choices. She turned to Derek, who sat at the plaintiff's table looking miserable. Mr. Montgomery, do you have employment currently? No, Your Honor. I was recently terminated. So you're asking this court to prevent your wife from accepting a prestigious position that would double her income, provide excellent education for your children, and offer you employment support in a new country, because you'd prefer to remain in Boston where you're currently unemployed? Walsh jumped in. Your Honor, the distance makes co-parenting impossible if the marriage dissolves. Mr. Walsh, your client was planning to relocate to Singapore alone for 18 months. I have his emails here discussing the benefits of distance for career focus. It seems the distance was acceptable when it suited him. The judge looked at Derek directly. Sir, why don't you want to go with your family? Derek opened his mouth, closed it. Finally, I don't want to be dependent on my wife's career. But you expected her to be dependent on yours when you planned your solo relocation? That was different. How? Derek had no answer. The judge denied the emergency petition. Dr. Montgomery has every right to advance her career. The children clearly want to accompany her. Mr. Montgomery has been offered the opportunity to relocate with his family, and his refusal is based on pride rather than the children's best interest. This petition is denied. We left the courthouse in silence. Outside, Derek finally spoke. I'll come with you to Singapore. I stopped walking. Why? Because I don't have a choice. You've taken everything else. Derek, if you're coming out of spite or resentment, don't. The kids and I will be fine without you. He looked at me, really looked at me, perhaps for the first time in months. I'm scared, Claire. I'm scared I've destroyed everything. My career, my marriage, my relationship with my kids. Singapore feels like my last chance to fix this. It's not about fixing anything. It's about deciding who you want to be. A father who shows up for his family, or a man who lets his ego destroy everything. I want to show up. I don't know how to not be bitter about how this turned out. Then figure it out. You have 4 weeks before we leave. Decide if you're coming to be part of our family or if you're coming to punish me for being successful. Only one of those is welcome in Singapore. Derek nodded slowly. I'll work on it. We flew to Singapore 5 weeks later. All 4 of us. Derek found a position with a healthcare consulting firm 3 months after we arrived. The salary was lower than he wanted, but he accepted it. Owen thrived in his new school. Sophia made friends quickly. We bought a house near the hospital. Derek and I started marriage counseling. It's been a year now. We're not fixed. Maybe we never will be fully. But Derek finally understands what he almost lost. He sees how close he came to destroying our family for his pride. And I learned something valuable. I don't need Derek's permission to pursue my career. I don't need him to validate my choices. I built our family's future while he was planning his escape, and I'll keep building it whether he keeps up or not. The emails from Patricia Wu and Cameron Fletcher are saved on my laptop. Reminders of what almost happened, of what I prevented. Derek doesn't know I kept them, but sometimes when he starts to complain about his salary or his position, I open that folder. And I remember, I didn't ruin his career. I saved our family. And if he can't see the difference, that's his problem, not mine.